Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the latest expansion-packed episode of the Switch It Up Show. I am your host today, Seth Trav, and we have got a very special one today. We're doing things a little bit differently because today it is our 150th episode spectacular. We just want to hit you with a few quick, awesome little tidbits about all the games that we have gone through, some of the great things that we have played in our 150 episodes here at the Switch It Up Show. But before I talk too much about all our accomplishments, I have to introduce the guy who got us there, who keeps me going, my partner in crime, my hetero life mate, our friend, Glenn.
Mr. Trav, how are you this evening? Great, wonderful introduction. Not so much deserved, but wonderful nonetheless.
I am ecstatic, my guy. I am feeling spectacular because, like I said, it's our 150th episode. But before we get there, ladies and gentlemen, we gotta do what we always do and let those sweet, sweet beats ride. This is our 150th episode, and we've been through a lot. We've actually done over 300 games in our 150 episodes here on the Switch It Up Show. It's been over 3 years that we've been doing this show. We've done everything from Night Terrors, to Pizza Titan Ultra, to Space Cows, to Waifu Hunter, to Toe Jam and Earl Back in the Groove, and so many more. Our friend Glenn, what is one of your favorite memories that you have from the Switch It Up Show?
There's a ton of games, and I'm sure we'll get into some of them and talk about them. But I think off the top of my head, like one of the things that I like about this show the most, I mean, is that it kind of it worked. You know, I remember when you and I were talking about this, and you were like, "Do you think this will happen? You think we'll actually be able to do it?" And I was like, "Well, let's give it a shot." And once we started to go through like the eShop and comb through and reach out to people, and once we started to make our requests, and people started to go out and like give us codes to be able to review their games, and it was other like indie companies, and not like we're like an indie podcast company or anything like that, but you know what I mean? Like it's you and me.
I mean, a bit. We come from our background in the Preeshnetwork and Preeshcast, where we had a decent enough following. Of course, our background filming professional wrestling, stuff like that. So we had a bit of a shimmy into some circles, you know, where we were able to gather some listeners. Thank you again, everyone, for sticking with us. But yeah, man, it was wild. I know for a fact that I was like, I don't think we were going to be able to make it. And I think on episode 3, where we got our first game from NIS America, which was, of course, Disgaea 5. Mm-hmm. It's crazy, dude. That was all the way back in, I think it was...
episode 3, which is technically May of 2017.
May of 2017, all the way back then was when we were really just starting this out. And it was nuts. It was absolutely nuts that we were able to start getting games from these bigger companies and start really doing something here.
Yeah, it was wild to watch them come in and like say yes, you know, because normally when you request different things for review, or even if you're doing anything and you're trying to make a partnership with somebody, like you got a lot of no. But when we reached out to all these different, like, you know, independent developers, we got and continue to get so many like yes please and thank you for doing this. Like it is shocking to me. The like indie game community is a very loving and caring one.
Yes, our great partners over companies like NIS America, like Tiny Build, like Annapurna, like
P-Cube, East Asia Soft. Yes. You know, it just seems like it goes.
SNK helped us out with the SNK 40th anniversary, all those classic games that we were able to play. The great people over at Toe Jam and Earl. It's just, it's crazy. Retaliaca Games, of course. They supply us with so many amazing games, so many awesome indie titles. It's just wild, all the great content that we've been able to play and supply, not only here on the podcast, but also on our YouTube channel, /Preeshnetwork. where we do have an awful lot of the games played. Hopefully you're checking those out in the show notes, because you do get to see an awful lot of that content streamed.
And over the course of the 3 years that we've been doing the show, we've actually moved the hosting twice. So, we've been able to kind of take that audience with us, when we first left SoundCloud, or went to SoundCloud, and then we left them and went over to Anchor, which is where we are now, which has been great, in terms of being able to, this like ease of uploading and being able to reach out to maybe like a new audience or get more people listening to the show. So if you followed us over to Anchor, thank you so much, because we do see the metrics. We're very like metric obsessed when it comes to the show, just because I do this for fun and to hang out with you, because it's really like the only way that aside from us playing like Destiny or something in these crazy times, this is like one of our main forms of interaction, and it's awesome that other people appreciate it, or at least tune in and check it out.
I agree 100%, my guy. And as like I said, thank you to all of our great fans. Thank you for sticking with us through all the changes from what was it, Pod something, Overcast, Pod Supply Nation, to podcounty.biz, now to our new provider, Anchor.
It was
Thank you so much, Anchor.
Yeah, back in the day it was Libsyn, and then it was
SoundCloud.
Yeah, we were
there with all the quality rappers. Yeah. There are quite a few on SoundCloud. I'm not dissing anybody there.
No,
I'm telling you, go check them out. Support some of the underground guys like your Jar Jar Juniors. Those are some good, solid beats right there.
Yeah, man. I mean, it filled its niche, but now with with Anchor being able to do it for free, that's pretty good.
It is. That's pretty great. So, moving on. What's one of the great games that you remember here?
We have such a large catalog of games, but I think one of the ones that first kind of like stuck out to me, just because it was so absolutely insane, was Ace of Seafood. That's back on episode 35. And
oh my god!
And I remember when I saw this,
March 2018.
Yeah. I remember when I saw this, like the first, like in the eShop, it's basically like a third person like shooter game. It's like Star Fox, but if you were a fish under the water. And I was just this is crazy. I'm like, I've never seen a game like this, and just going through the ocean, discovering all these different creatures and like blowing them to pieces.
Give me real Seaman vibes from
Dreamcast.
Sega Dreamcast, yeah, where you had to talk to that weird man face thing.
But it was just
Ace of Seafood was one of the craziest games that we had ever seen.
but just like fun. And I was like, this looks different. Like in a time when so many games are like Metroidvania madness, it's cool to do something a little bit more creative. Not that those games aren't creative, but it's something that we see like a lot, and
we have a lot of reviews that go along the Metroidvanian auto generating style gameplay, which it's definitely a market. There's some definitely really good games there, but some of them are just a little blasé. They all kind of start running together a little bit,
Mm-hmm.
Bit of a shame there. But sticking with some of those original games and great content that we got, back on episode 70, we had the chance to review Undead's Building. It was back from April 2019. That is one of the most unique puzzle games that I have ever had the experience playing. Essentially, all you do is ride an elevator, and you decide to open it for people who are alive and close it for people who are dead. And it's kind of a puzzle because they kind of trick you. You can kind of throw things at them, stuff like that. Go back, listen to the episode, because it was a great review. We have content of it streaming on the YouTube page, but it is one of those amazing original titles that I was just like, this looks so nuts. How do you make a puzzle game out of an elevator while a zombie outbreak is happening? Like, what is that? It's so awesome, because like that game, we've also gotten the chance to review many of these spoken word, many of these storybook sort of visual novels, if you will. We must have reviewed at least 10, 15 of those so far. So many of them are unique and present themselves in a perspective that, we may not necessarily take ourselves, being approaching middle-aged men. uh, but that's the great thing about doing the show. It's really opened up a perspective of gaming that we may not have necessarily been exposed to otherwise.
Yeah, we kind of dip and dabble in a little bit of like everything. Typically, when we go through the eShop, is I mean, I open up the eShop. If it looks interesting, I see if we can get our hands on it because I'm definitely willing to give anything a chance, and a lot of companies are kind enough to give us a chance. So I'm like, you know what, like let's see what we can get, and because of that, we've been fortunate enough to review all types of stuff. One game back in episode 60, it's called City of Brass. I don't know if you remember this one.
I think I might.
But I was
a card game.
Yeah, it's like kind of like a first person shooter, but set in like Egypt, like the area, like the age, like the time of ancient Egypt, and you're going through like different. It's almost like you're progressing through this like. Almost like there's a Doom style atmosphere, and you're going through to try to collect as much treasure as possible. But the graphics on this thing are insane, and this was back in 2019, and I just remember looking at it and like thinking to myself, like, this is a Switch game. Like normally, like the Switch kind of gets like a little bit maybe like the toned down version of some of these things a bit compared to like the PS4 or like the Xbox.
You play, Pantsu Hunter.
Well, I mean, not all games require that extra graphical power, but City of Brass is definitely one of the better looking games that are on the Switch. And if you're looking for a different type of like first person shooter, when that is not kind of like the typical one that you would encounter, it's definitely worth checking out, and in a really cool setting.
Oh, absolutely. Some of these settings are amazing. One of the ones that I absolutely loved, and in fact we got to review twice, was Graveyard Keeper. We got to check it out on Steam originally when it first released, and then again when it came ported to the Nintendo Switch, which was a fairly faithful port over. And I love that we had the opportunity to do something like that because it gave us a chance to see how do these things vary from peripherals. We've had an awful lot to play on the PS4 and now subsequently the PlayStation 5, where we are pushing out new content. We are getting great games. We just got Haven. We did a review of that not 4 episodes ago, where we were lucky enough to review one of the very first games that was released for PlayStation 5. That's awesome to me. I think that's wildly cool. And like you said, we get to go to all these different settings in our games. We get to go to all these different settings in what we play. Because just like the show itself, we like to switch it up, ladies and gentlemen.
And it's funny you mentioned the PlayStation 5, because right around like episode 67 is where we started to kind of take that, the name of the show a little bit more literally, and switch up what we were reviewing. We did that very much so on purpose, because we would reach out to these different companies, request a game, and they'd be like, we don't have any Switch copies, or we don't have any Switch copies left for your region, but we do have it on PS5, or we do have it on PS4, or we have it on Steam, or we have it on Vita, and I was like, well, why not try it out? The game is still on Switch most of the time, not all the time, but that's the beauty of Switch It Up, because we're gonna kind of dip and dabble in pretty much everything. We do focus in Switch, that's the name of the show, but if we're reviewing something and we can't necessarily get a Switch copy of it to try out, then we're definitely willing to go out and try something. And one of the first games that we did that with was back in episode 67, and it was for Steam, and it was The Texorcist. And
The Texorcist, what a great title that was.
The Texorcist is an amazing title, crazy awesome, like retro 8-bit artwork, and basically in the game, you are a priest, and you are going through and you are exorcising people, but the way you're doing it is that you have to type out like passages from the Bible on the keyboard in order to, like, the rites of the exorcism, in order fast enough and accurately enough in order to perform the exorcism, as you're also moving around the level and like dodging like different projectiles that are coming at you in like a haunted, creepy setting. It was just so cool, and the music is awesome, and the graphics are neat, and it was very much so like House of the Dead when they did Typing of the Dead on Dreamcast. Another shout out back to Dreamcast.
I do love the Dreamcast there. That Typing of the Dead was a classic. I believe it's one of the rare games that we actually have footage of you playing on our YouTube channel.
Oh man,
where
yes, sir.
We have it in the Steamed Games section.
Yeah, and I mean, it was just a fun game, and I guess I can understand why maybe it didn't come to the Switch, because you would have to do it on the, I think you can actually plug in a keyboard if you have an adapter in order to do it, or you plug it into the dock. I think you can do that. But I mean, trying to touch it on the touchpad would be insane, because you have to type so quick. But the Text Assist was a big part of one of the first games that we reviewed for another platform, which was neat to kind of branch out into like a different area.
It's all been very wild, ladies and gentlemen. I, for one, have had an amazing experience doing 150 episodes, and I hope that you as well have had an amazing experience with us. I, for one, hope we get to do 150 more and beyond. We continue it into a Switch Pro, and who else knows? What are you looking forward to coming down the pike, my friend Glenn?
I mean, I pulled up the game store just to kind of see what was coming up, because I'm going to do my homework next, and try to see what else is on the horizon for us to review. But I'm gonna be honest, there's a lot of games that were announced recently for the Nintendo Switch, like first party titles that I'm pretty excited to play. I don't think we'd necessarily review them here on the show, but I think it's awesome that Skyward Sword is going to come out in HD in July.
Good. It's going to be awesome. I only experienced, I believe, in your basement on the Wii.
Yeah. And I mean, but I think a little closer on the horizon that has been announced for quite some time is the new Pokemon Snap. I think that's going to be a blast.
Did I get that yet?
Oh my God, yes! I think that's going to be a blast. I think my son's going to be super into it. I'm really excited to check that out. I love Pokemon Snap back in the day. It's just a fun, like, chill game. I feel like you should super be into it as well, because it's pretty much like No Man's Sky for Pokemon.
It's funny that you say that, because Pokemon Snap is actually the game that I consider to be my most disappointing purchase of all time. Because I saved 4 months when I was younger to be able to purchase this game. I was like, Pokemon in 3D on my N64? Finally, it's going to be amazing. I beat the thing in like an hour and a half, and I was like, this is it? I took all the pictures, got Mew. You got him to do all the weird poses that, were supposed to be secret and all that. I was just like, that's crazy. And this is before GameStop was like in every other town. So you couldn't just trade in a game and get money back for it. It was like, well, now I'm stuck with this that I spent all this money on and got done in an hour. That was when I started to enjoy Blockbuster.
Yeah, those were definitely the days, my man, because there's no real modern equivalent of that so much anymore. Not unless you're
Gamefly.
Yeah, pretty much. We have to see if we can get them on for a sponsor.
We should. Gamefly, get at us. Let us know if you're listening to the Switch It Up show. So, ladies and gentlemen, that is it for us. Like I said, I am stoked for all the great things coming down the pike. We are looking forward to every little thing that we're going to do. Let us know what you're into. Get at us on Twitter at SwitchItUpShow, at Preeshcast, at SethTrav, and at From the Crib. Together, we are, of course, the Switch It Up Show, and we want to remind you, ladies and gentlemen, if things ever get boring, you can always switch it up.